people are stockpiling special pills to guard against radioactive fallout, but here's what you actually need in a nuclear survival kit. An illustration of a nuclear bomb exploding in a city. Shutterstock. Hopefully it won't be the tweet that launched 1,000 ships, or nuclear weapons. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times, President Donald Trump tweeted on January 2. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works. Many people are concerned that statement was belligerent enough to back the U.S. into war. Shortly after Trump posted the statement, which received about 700,000 interactions, store managers across the country noticed a spike in sales of potassium iodide, or key, pills, which are often advertised as able to block radiation from nuclear fallout. Potassium iodide pills being distributed by a pharmacist. Richard Matthews, app for example, Troy Jones, who runs the website www.nukepills.com, told NPR that he saw demand for the pills soar. On January 2, I basically got in a month's supply of potassium iodide and I sold out in 48 hours, he said. In 2 days, Jones said he sent out about 140,000 doses of the drug, whereas he normally would have shipped about 8,400. Some local pharmacies have seen a similar rise in sales. But the pill is far from a protect-all against a nuclear attack. In fact, radiation health experts say it's pretty much the last thing people need in a nuclear blast survival kit, especially with the type of strike North Korea might be capable of. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un looks over what may be a miniaturized thermonuclear weapon. Thomson Reuters. North Korea is working feverishly to miniaturize the nuclear devices it has detonated and perfect an intercontinental ballistic missile to deliver them thousands of miles away. ICBM-launched warheads are likely to explode high above a city, leading to relatively little radioactive fallout. Instead, the U.S. government says fallout is a greater concern in the event of a terrorist's nuclear detonation, which would be close to the ground. That's because fallout is formed and spread when dirt and debris get sucked up by a nuclear blast, irradiated to dangerous levels, pushed into the atmosphere, and sprinkled over great distances. One of the products in fallout is radioactive iodine. Iodine is absorbed and used by the thyroid gland in the neck, so radioactive forms can concentrate there and promote cancer. Key pills, which cost anywhere from a few cents to more than $1 per pill online, can block that absorption. However, radioactive iodine represents a tiny percentage of the elements that the human body would be exposed to in the event of a nuclear disaster. Most people seem to think of the potassium iodide, or key, pills as some type of anti-radiation drug. They are not. Brock Budimir, a health physicist and expert on radiation at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, previously told Business Insider. They are for preventing the uptake of radioiodine, which is one radionuclide out of thousands of radionuclides that are out there. Budimir estimated that radioiodine is just 0.2% of the overall exposure you may face outdoors, and said the pills are more helpful for addressing longer-term concerns about food supply contamination. In the case of a nuclear blast, he said, the most important thing is sheltering in place. The protection factor that various buildings, and locations within them, offer from the radioactive fallout of a nuclear blast. The higher the number, the greater the protection. Brock Budimir, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. If you're lucky enough to survive the searing flash of light, crushing shockwaves, and incendiary fireball that is a nuclear explosion, your next item of concern is fallout. Sheltering inside a robust structure for at least 12 to 24 hours is a key way to survive that threat, Budimir said, since fallout can easily outspeed vehicles as it gets blown around by high-speed winds in the upper atmosphere. Budimir is a fan of the mantra go in, stay in, tune in. Get inside. And get to the center of that building, he said. If you happen to have access to below-ground areas, getting below ground is great. Soil is a great shield from radiation, Budimir says, so ducking into a home with a basement would be better than going into a place without. Besides cars, the poorest shelters are made of wood, plaster, and other materials that don't shield against much radiation. About 20% of houses fall into this category. Better shelters, such as schools and offices, are made of bricks or concrete and have few or no windows. But Amir recommends visiting ready.gov to see a complete list of what to do in various emergency scenarios, including a nuclear blast, and what to include in a full emergency kit. It's smart to prepare a family plan and assemble a few smaller, basic emergency kits that you can stash at home, work, and in vehicles. This isn't just for the nuclear holocaust event, but Amir said. This is for general emergency preparedness and making sure that you and your family can be safe in an emergency. Shutterstock. The first item to include is a radio, he said, ideally a hand-cranked type with a USB charging port that can power other devices. A radio is important for receiving emergency broadcasts and instructions. It's one of the simplest ways to figure out where dangerous fallout has landed, when you can leave your shelter, and where the safest routes to exit a fallout zone are. If you have a cell phone, that'll work too, but Amir said, though he prefers a radio because sometimes the cell towers may be affected by power outages, crushing demand, or an invisible yet powerful effect of nuclear weapons called electromagnetic pulse. The effect can disable electronics, though a ground detonation would mostly confine EMP to the blast damage zone, where you'd have much bigger problems. Second, but Amir says, you'll want water, ideally 1 gallon per person per day, according to ready.gov. In addition to drinking it, you may need it to rinse off radioactive fallout after removing your clothes, since this can drastically reduce your radiation exposure. Third, but Amir said, I would probably grab a breakfast bar or two to stave off the hunger a little bit. Fourth, he says, is any essential medications or treatments you might need. If one of your kits isn't handy in the event of an explosion, but Amir recommends trying to grab a few of these items, as long as that process doesn't delay taking shelter by more than a couple of minutes. The first minutes and hours after a blast are when radioactive fallout exposure risk is the greatest, especially outdoors. You can access more information about how to prepare for a variety of emergency